A very, a very imaginative man once said that all dreams can come true if you only have the courage to pursue them. Jack and his wife were very, very poor, but they managed the best they could. But they had very little money or anything to speak of. Well, one day, Jack decided to go visit his best friend, Ivan. And when he got to Ivan's house, he found Ivan asleep in his rocking chair on the front porch. And from the little twisting and turning and little gestures that Ivan was making, it was clear that Ivan was dreaming. And so Jack waited, and then he gently placed his hand on Ivan's shoulder and shook him, wake him up. And Ivan stretched his arms up in a big yawn, and a little bee flew out of his nose. And when he woke up, he said to Jack, he said, Jack, I just had the strangest dream. I I dreamt that I was digging in a garden of a rich person. And I was digging beneath a cherry tree, and I found a jar full of gold. Yes, I did. Full of gold it was. And and just then, well then I woke up and here you are. What a silly dream that was. Yeah? Jack Jack he couldn't believe this. He couldn't believe what he had been seeing. And he he said he said, Ivan, he said, could I buy that dream? And Ivan said, what do you mean buy my dream? You know, it was just a dream. You can't buy a dream. No, I want to. I want to get. I've got some money here. I'll pay you for that dream. I mean, there's something very special about it. Well, Ivan thought it was being very, very silly indeed. And he said, well, if you want to, you know, then of course, yeah, I'll take your money. You can have my dream. Well, Jack went home. And when he told his wife what he had done, well, can you imagine what his wife said? She couldn't believe it. She said, you idiot, Jack. Who goes and buys a dream? And it's not even your own dream, it's somebody else's dream. And you've spent all our money on something foolish. I don't believe it, Jack. And she was very angry at him and she stomped off into the house. Well, Jack Willow, he was determined. He just knew that there was something about this dream that he had to follow. And so he put a little bit of food together and he told his wife, he said, I'm going to set off and this dream, I need this dream because this dream is going to lead me to treasure and we're going to be wealthy. And she said, well, whatever, Jack, I guess I can't stop you, but I don't know, you know, where do you think you're going? Well, Ivan said that he was in the garden of a very wealthy man. And I think that must be the king. The king, his wife said. The king lives way across on the other side of the country. That must be at least 500 miles away. Well, then I better get going, said Jack. And off he went. And he had to walk, of course, so it was going to take a long time. And it was a rough journey. He had to sleep out on the side of the road and he had to beg for food as he was going along. Well, after many days, he arrived. And he asked the people in the street, you know, where did the king live? Well, they pointed out, they said, you know, you got to go down there. It's outside the city. You go there and you'll see he lives in a great big palace. You can't miss it. And so Jack followed their directions and he found the palace and he went up to the front door and he knocked on the door. And a servant came to the door and said, what do you want? Because he just saw that it looked like a peasant outside. What's a peasant doing at the palace? What do you want? And Jack said, is this where the king lives? Yes, of course it is where the king lives. What do you want? Well, do you have a garden? Oh, I guess you do. But in the garden, do you have a cherry tree? Yes, we do. And beside the cherry tree, what did Ivan say? Oh, there's a big tall pine tree right beside it. Yes, we have a big tall pine tree too. And just beside that, it, Ivan said, oh yeah, he said, do you have like a really beautiful fountain? Yes, we have a fountain too. Yes, that's right. Well, then this has got to be the place. I have to talk to the king. And the servant said, okay, well, come on in. And he took him up to the king. And Jack told the king his whole story and all about the dream. Well, the king just thought it was the most foolish thing. But when he heard that one of his subjects had traveled 500 miles on foot to come and see him, he thought the least he could do was, to give him a meal that night and put him up for the night and send him off in the morning. Well, that's what he did. And so Jack came in and had a meal with the king. And it was very lovely indeed. And I'd tell you all about it, but it's not that important. And so when the meal was over, they retired for the evening, and Jack went off to his room, and the king went off to his room. And before the king went to bed, he's thinking, just what if there is gold hidden on my property beneath that cherry tree in the garden? Hmm. And so what the king did, everybody's asleep, but the king woke up a few of his servants, and they went out there with shovels out to the cherry tree, and the king made them start digging underneath the cherry tree. And the servants, they dug and they dug and they dug. And when they went down several feet, they hit something hard. And sure enough, it was the top of a jar. And they cleared away the earth. And the king said, take the top off, take the top off. And they removed the top. And when they removed the top, a little bee flew out. They looked into the jar. And guess what was in there? Nothing. It was empty. Oh, the king, well, he was disappointed at first, but then he started to laugh because he realized, oh, he got caught up in all the foolishness. And he had to laugh at himself. And he laughed and he laughed and he told the servants, look, put the jar back and bury it. And don't say a word about this to anybody. The king went off. Well, the next morning, Jack got up and Jack was so excited. He could hardly wait to get out in the garden. And he went out and he woke up some of the servants and he said, come on, come on. And the servants went out with him. And he said, now dig under the cherry tree. And they started digging. And of course, it was easier to dig the second time around, but they didn't say anything. And they dug down and down. They got a couple of feet. And sure enough, they hit that jar. And when they hit the jar, when they uncovered it, Jack was so excited. He said, I knew it. I knew this dream is going to come true. I knew I had to come here. And he jumped down in the hole and he cleared away the earth himself. And he was about to take the top off the lid. And what do you think was going to be inside it now? Any ideas? Who thinks gold? Brenda. Oh, yeah. And Jack took the lid off and he looked in. It was empty. There was nothing in there. Well, the servants, of course, they knew, but they didn't say anything. Jack was so disappointed. Oh, he felt terrible. And he walked away thinking, what am I going to do? I can't go home. I've come all this way. I've spent all our money. I've disappointed my wife. But where was Jack going to go? He was a poor man. And I mean, come on. He loved his wife and he missed her. And he didn't have anywhere else to go. And so he decided to make the long journey home. He walked a little more slowly this time, for he needed time to think about how he was going to explain all this to his wife. Well, when he got to his village and he was walking up to his home, he saw his wife in the window. She turned and she saw him, and she came running out with open arms. Jack, Jack, oh, I've missed you so much. I love you. I love you. And he said, well, I love you too, dear, but there's something I have to tell you. No, and she hugged him and she said, no, Jack, I have something to tell you. Come, come, let me show you. He goes, well, what is it? What happened? Well, when you were away, one night I was sitting up sewing and I thought I heard a bee in the attic. And so I climbed the stairs and I opened the attic door and the bee flew out. And then tumbling after it, gold coins, Jack, gold coins, hundreds and hundreds of gold coins tumbled down the ladder on right into our house all over the floor. Jack, come and see. The entire floor of our house is covered in gold. It was true. It was true. And so Jack and his wife, oh, they lived a very, very happy life for a long, long time. They were never poor again.